Shoto Todoroki is arguably the most naturally talented student at UA. When the series began, he was presented as an almost invincible hotshot, so much so that we were able to overlook his terrible costume design. He was one of only 4 students to get into the school via special recommendation, and he was born into a wealthy family with a quirk that is almost the perfect combination of both his parents' abilities. However, despite all these advantages, Shoto's childhood was still one of the most tragic in the series, but yet it's still likely not even the worst in his own family. Endeavor really needs to work on his parenting skills. Since the beginning of the series, Shoto has grown up a lot in terms of his attitude, his quirk, and his feelings towards his dad, so today I thought it'd be cool to realistically examine how much more he can evolve after a 10-year time skip. Just before we get into it though, be sure to hit that sub button as we are still on that yellow brick road to 100k. We're nearly there, not too far away, so I'd really appreciate it if you would subscribe. Todoroki was about 15 years old when season 4 finished, which means that after a 10-year time skip, he'd have long finished his time at UA and would have been a hero for quite a while now. After graduating from UA, it's highly likely that Shoto would accept his dad's offer to join the Endeavor agency as a sidekick, as by this time I reckon Shoto would have probably forgiven his father in some capacity, or at the very least agreed to move past their differences. We've seen glimpses and hints towards this in the anime and the manga, so by the time he graduates, they'll surely be on much better terms than they are right now. By joining as a sidekick, Endeavor can groom Todoroki to succeed him and take over the family business in a few years, which I guess means the Endeavor agency would be renamed into the Shoto agency. What do you guys think? Does that have a ring to it or no? Remember, his hero name, for now at least, is actually just Shoto, so yeah, that would be what it would be called, I guess. I reckon for a few years he would act as a sidekick until he eventually surpasses Endeavor in terms of strength and also gains enough experience so that there's nothing really of significance that his dad can teach him anymore. That moment will be the signal for the big guy to finally retire after all those years of pro-heroing, and he can finally sit back, relax, maybe get a copy of One's Justice 2 and just virtually beat up All Might for the foreseeable future. At the age of 25, Shoto would have been running the agency for a while and using his evolved quirk to save people all across Japan. We'll get into what his quirk might look like later in the video, but for now I want to focus on where he'd be on the hero charts at this point. I think it's relevant to remember that Endeavor himself was second place in the charts at only 20 years old, so I'm thinking that anything lower than second place would be pretty lackluster, given that Shoto was the one who was born with even better genetics than Endeavor himself. That being said though, there are obviously some things that natural born heroes cannot compete with, and that of course is the power of One for All combined with a user who wants nothing more than to save people with a massive grin. As the OG protagonist, I think it's inevitable that Deku will be in that number 1 spot, which sadly means for Shoto the best he's going to do is second place. The question then becomes, who would compete with Shoto for that number 2 spot? The biggest contenders that come to mind for me are Bakugo, Tokiyami, and Inasa, although if my Bakugo theory happens, then yeah, he will definitely not be in contention. If Kachan is truly out of the picture, then I think Shoto has a really good chance because, he's taken over the agency of the former number 1 hero, which by itself just gives him an advantage over everyone else because he doesn't need to build up his reputation or popularity in the same way, and not to mention the fact that his quirk is just crazy flashy and cool anyway, so that second place spot does probably go to him if Bakugo is not around. Moving on to his relationships though, in my personal opinion, I reckon that he and Momo would definitely be a couple by this point. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that every pair in UA who has some sort of chemistry has to get together, but for me personally, I feel like these two are one of the top 3 ships in this series which have the best chance of happening. In fact, not just that, I think it should happen. Yayarozu clearly admires Todoroki a lot, as we saw during the practical exams, but the feeling seems to be mutual as he not only picked her for the cavalry battle, but also voted her for class rep, and he just loves her, okay? I'm sure both of their families would approve of this relationship as they come from similar social status and they both got into UA via recommendation, not to mention the fact that the combination of these two quirks would be something that should probably be illegal. It would be that powerful. I don't think they would have any kids by this point though because they're still in their mid-20s, and if you're really committed to being a hero, I think it's best to stay celibate like All Might does. Also, especially for a hero, having a kid is like having a massive liability, as they will always be your weakness and villains can potentially exploit that. So whilst I'm sure these two would be a boss hero couple, I doubt their overpowered kids would be around just yet. In terms of Shoto's own quirk, how would it improve during this 10-year time span? Being the prodigy of the Todoroki family, his icy side allows him to counter the overheating that both Endeavor and Derby suffer from. When he was a kid, Endeavor said to him that he could achieve new levels of heat by reaching his limit and then surpassing that again and again and again. And by the age of 25, he would comfortably reach a level in which every flame he produces is bright blue, much like his dear evil brother. Whilst Derby has the raw firepower, I mean, we've seen it, Endeavor is the one who has the technique, as there were things that he did during the Pro Hero arc that, let's be real guys, we would never see Derby do something like this. In this sense, Shoto would be like the perfect combination of these two characters, as he would have mastered things like Prominence Burn and all the different flash fire moves, but with the hotter blue flames, so he can do whatever Endeavor can do, but with Derby's level of power. I imagine that after this time, Shoto would have also reached a level of enlightenment in which his icy hot quirk is no longer defined by his left or right side. He can pick and choose to use ice or fire on any limb that he wants. As an example, imagine he's shooting flames out of the bottom of his feet, kind of like replicating Endeavor's levitation, and then as he's doing that, he fires out icy attacks out of both of his hands. Or alternatively, he can just go all out with the flames from every limb that he has, which I guess would be the only way to truly replicate some of Endeavor's moves. And yeah, thinking about it now, I kind of imagine that Endeavor wouldn't really agree to retire until he saw that Shoto was capable of doing this and surpassing him in the process. On a completely random note, one of my favourite moves from any character in this series is this attack, which Shoto referred to in the manga as his heaven-piercing ice wall. I don't know about you guys, but when he first used this in the sports festival against both the robots and then again when he was showing off against Zero, those were both jaw-dropping moments for me. As he was able to do all of that at just 15 years old, if the circumstances allowed for it, surely the 25-year-old version of this character could produce way more ice during this move. I'm thinking like covering a third of a city in his ice. It would be pretty awesome if he could push back invading armies with just the swipe of his hand. Because the one thing I've always thought about is, in the world of My Hero, surely you still have international conflicts, you still have war. So what if in the next generation, when all the heroes are grown up, what if we see a legit, attempted invasion of Japan by another country, and all the students who we know now, they just have to go out on the battlefield all across Japan, showing the full might of their quirks. Maybe in a situation like that, we could see a move like this. But anyway, people, those are my thoughts on what Timeskip Todoroki could look like and be like, but for his quirk evolution, I did have one more thought, and that was the idea of him combining his fire and ice to create water-based attacks. I mean, I think something like that might be possible, in the future perhaps. As always, thank you for watching, and this video was a pretty special one because we are around the 1-year anniversary of my first ever video, which is still on this channel if you want to look at it. To see how far we've come in a year is pretty amazing, and so to end this video, I'll be leaving you with a clip from my first ever video, and that will hopefully inspire maybe some of you to start your own channels if you've been thinking about it. But yeah, I'll leave this here, and peace out.
I mean, that's insane. But yeah, that's basically everything I had to say about this review. I wanted it to be quite concise in terms of just a review of the chapter for people who couldn't be bothered to read it, and I just gave a few little opinions in there here and there. This is my first video on this channel, so please subscribe if you want to stay up to date with the latest videos that I'm putting out. I plan to do more chapter reviews in the future, probably some theories and maybe some fact videos as well, but I'll just see how this video works out and if anyone's really taking a liking to it. I probably will improve in the future. I know this probably wasn't the best video in the world, but like I said, I just wanted to give a concise review of what happened in the chapter. I think I did that, but let me know if you think there's any room for feedback. I'm always open to feedback. And yeah, thank you for watching.